If you bring up the topic of anchoring among cruisers, you're sure to get all kinds of very, very heated opinions. But how can you take part in that amazing debate if you don't even have some basic vocabulary? Hi, I'm Nika Waters, and welcome to the Boat Galley Podcast. Today, I'm sharing some basic anchoring terms, just so you can have an idea of what people are talking about when they're talking about anchoring. Today's episode of the Boat Galley Podcast is sponsored by MantisMarine.com, maker of the Mantis Anchor, now available in models with and without a roll bar. Proven to set reliably in the most challenging bottoms, the Mantis Anchor digs like no other, making anchoring safer and boating more enjoyable. Mantis Marine brings to market practical, durable, and affordable marine products, including anchoring gear, scuba diving accessories, and a rechargeable waterproof headlamp for hands-free lighting. Visit MantisMarine.com and see for yourself. Anchoring. It's absolutely the subject of passionate debate with lots of people in the cruising community. And this is by no means a podcast about anchoring. Instead, it's a podcast about anchoring terminology. So let's talk about just some real basics. We are going to talk about 5 different aspects of anchoring that maybe you know about and maybe you don't. But whatever, maybe you'll learn a little bit from this. The first thing to know about is what rode is. Rode, R-O-D-E, is the material used to connect the anchor and the boat together. Most boats, you're talking about either all chain or some combination of line and chain. I don't think that there is any boat that I've ever seen that has only all line, but then again, it depends, and I haven't seen every boat that's out there. Generally, you want at least some bit of chain on your anchor rode because that helps both keep the angle of the anchor down properly along the bottom and also to reduce any kind of chafe, to avoid any kind of chafe. What you choose for your boat will depend on things like your cruising grounds, your boat's carrying capacity, and even your windlass choice. And all of those will have something to do with what you choose in terms of rode for your anchor. So rode is the material used to connect the anchor and the boat. The second thing to think about is how much rode you have out, and so you need to mark your rode. There are counters that you can buy that will do this automatically. I think I've seen some videos where some boats actually have it even built into the whole system. For many boaters, you will choose to mark it individually at 25 or 50-foot increments, and that's a very simple, non-mechanical, non-electrical, any kind of solution that you can use. Now, how you mark it, that's a whole nother conversation, and that's a balance between longevity, visibility, environmental awareness, and practicality. And there's no one way or only one right way to mark your rode, but marking it is very important to know how much you have out. Why do you need to know how much rode you have out? Well, simply we're talking about scope. And scope is the ratio of rode to water depth. Modern anchors, as opposed to getting on a mooring or something that just relies on heavy weight, like, say, a boat engine, modern anchors actually work by hooking into the seabed. And if you think about when you have a hook going into something, if you're pulling it more or less horizontally, it's going to resist coming out of whatever you're hooking it onto. The angle of the pull is affected by how much rode you have out. You need less scope with all chain because chain won't float, and that will keep the angle low, thereby keeping the pull of the anchor much more in a horizontal plane. It is important to note that you need to take the height of your bow into account. Because let's say you're anchoring in 20 feet of water and you're on all chain and you want to go 5-to-1. So if you're 20 feet of water and 5-to-1, you would think you have to put 100 feet out. But if your bow is 10 feet off the surface, you need to put 150 feet from the top of where your roller is to get that same amount of angle, to get that same amount of scope in there. So if you forget to take that extra 10 feet into account, you won't have as much rode out as you think you're due, and your anchor might not hold very well. Personally, I'm the person on the bow when we anchor together, and I usually note the amount of rode out as I see the marker in the water, not from when it leaves my anchor roller. So scope is the ratio of rode to water depth. Let's say your rode is all chain. Well, that sounds like a great thing, right? You resist chafe, you can keep it the angle lower, you don't have to put out as much. But the problem with chain is that chain does not stretch. And you definitely want some elasticity so that you reduce the shock loading on the boat. The boat will move and surge with wind and wave, and you need some kind of way to absorb that movement rather than having it shock load onto the bow. What you will use for that is a snubber. And a snubber is a length of line that connects the chain to the bow. What we do is we hook our snubber on and let it out so that then the snubber and the chain are even, tie off the snubber, and then add more chain out so that there is a loop of chain so that the snubber can absorb any shock and the chain will not shock load. The next thing and the last thing I'm going to talk about today is a windlass. A windlass is a winch designed to pull up the anchor. These come in either manual or electric versions. Sure, can you anchor without a windlass? Absolutely. However, a windlass allows you to deploy and retrieve larger anchors with more chain than you could otherwise. If you're sailing a boat like a laser or something small that would have a very small anchor and a very small size chain, that's less of an issue. But as your boat gets bigger and the anchor sizes get larger and the corresponding chain sizes get larger, they become heavier and harder to bring in. Whether you choose to have any windlass at all, or an electric windlass or a manual windlass, much like the anchor and the rode, it's going to depend on your cruising grounds, the size boat, your own feeling of competence and physicality and availability of personal resources to be able to pull up the anchor and chain and line by yourself. So think about a windlass as a winch designed to pull up the anchor. These are basics that will help you understand both conversations about anchoring and anchoring systems, but also as you are researching to figure out for you and your own boat what it is that you're looking for in terms of an anchor and rode, understanding these terms will make that a much easier aspect on your life. Learning to anchor well is one cruising skill that will pay off absolutely handsomely. It will enable you to feel more secure on the hook. I can't wait to share an anchorage with you when we're both happily anchored. And maybe it's time to bring up that debate, or maybe not. Maybe we'll just both stick with what we have and maybe share any tips that make our anchoring systems work better for us. Thank you so much for listening to the Boat Galley podcast. We love hearing from our listeners. We love it when you share us with your friends. We love it when you don't forget to subscribe. Have the most fantastic week.